the drugs that are legal and illegal and what are banned and what we're not allowed to use and what are only approved for like certain therapies, right? It's just like it's what people don't realize is we are literally walking bags of drugs.
Good point.
That we're never we're never in one state. Our state is constantly evolving depending on what chemicals are taking over and the balance. It's just a constant balance of drugs and chemicals in our bodies.
That's right.
And it's so fun to experiment and offset that balance a little bit and see how that, if it affects us positively or negatively.
That's exactly it. Yes, you touched on a point that I often make. We're made of drugs.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We are biochemical engines that work on drugs. You know, neurotransmitters, enzymes, hormones, all of this, we're biochemical engines.
Yes.
And maybe more than that. I'd like to think that there's a spiritual aspect, but the functioning body is a biochemical machine that runs on drugs, and this is why drugs have their effect. If DMT, for example, we know that it occurs in the brain,
in the lungs
rather
too, right?
high levels, and it's there. It's actually a neurotransmitter. And there's, recent work has shown, originally it was sort of, the focus was all about the pineal gland.
Yes.
And that data is not so valid anymore. The pineal gland does make DMT, but not enough to have an effect. But there are whole new neurotransmitter systems that have been identified for which DMT is basically the neurotransmitter at levels comparable to serotonin.
DMT is in pretty much everything, right?
In fact, DMT is in everything. It's true. And you know why it's in everything? It's because DMT is molecularly the simplest psychedelic, and it comes from tryptophan. Tryptophan is an amino acid, one of the 20 that it makes up proteins, right? Mm-hmm. So tryptophan is in every living thing, because it's one of the 20. And there are enzymes. DMT is 2 steps from tryptophan. There are enzymes that take off the carboxyl group. Tryptophan is an amino acid. Decarboxylases, this class of enzymes called decarboxylases, remove the acid group, and then you get amines. So you get tryptophan, you remove the carboxyl group, you get tryptamine. Mm. You stick 2 methyl groups on that, another enzyme comes along called N-methyltransferase. I love biochemistry because the name of enzymes describe what they do, right? N-methyltransferase, it sticks methyl groups on things, CH3 groups on things. So 2 steps from tryptophan, you get DMT. And then from that, you get all these variations, bufotenine, 5-methoxy-DMT, psilocybin. You get this whole tryptamine family, of most of which are psychoactive. But DMT is the primary hallucinogenic or psychedelic tryptamine, and it's the simplest one. It's not orally active. And actually, you could eat plants that contain DMT, and people do. It's the part of some people's diet, but because they're not taking MAO inhibitors, they never suspect they're taking a hallucinogen. For example, DMT occurs in oranges and lemons and things like that at low levels, but it's there. DMT, I think there are thousands of plants that contain DMT. It's not rare at all. Not all plants express DMT in great quantities, but it's there. And then some do actually produce significant amounts of it, like acacias, for example. Acacia, which is primarily, acacia is about 1,200 genera, or 1,200 species, all through Africa, mostly Australia, concentrated. some of the most potent sources of DMT and other tryptamines are found in acacias, which ironically happens to be they're known as wattles in Australia. The wattle is the national tree of Australia. And
Interesting.
there's no record that Aborigines use these things, but they have been there. And my theory is that there's probably trace amounts of DMT in all plants, because of these enzymes, decarboxylases and N-methyltransferases are pretty much involved in cellular processes at all levels. So nobody's going to do this and nobody's going to fund it, but I'll bet if you went out and just started picking plants at random and analyzing them for DMT, you would find trace amounts of DMT. And in some cases, large amounts. And those are the ones that have become utilized, like the chacruna, psychotria, which is the admixture plant for ayahuasca, or these anadenanthera snuffs that are the seeds are made into stuff, or the ukuhe that we were talking about, the varolas. They contain large amounts of DMT. And indigenous people have, they're very clever. They want to get high just like everybody does, but they become very clever at identifying these plants and learning how to prepare them.
Yeah, I mean, and even through history, imagine how much drugs people were doing through antiquity, right? Like they didn't have the cultural boundaries and guidelines and sanctions, if you want to put it that way, around society, right? Like they didn't have to follow these. They didn't have to fit into these norms. They were probably just roaming around, trying to have sex and get high and eat.
Pretty much,
right?
Yeah. Well, this goes back to the whole Stoned Ape Theory.
Yes,
that's another rabbit hole we could go down.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I think that's one of my favorite theories that Terrence came up with.